So now that we understood from that COVID customer is like, they're trying to keep their kids busy. How can we target some of our marketing efforts to that job to be done and then land them in a spot where they can explore and look? So we went to 20 million ARR in 3 years. And to any startup, they'd be like, that's amazing. But when you're a giant business, the return on investment wasn't there.
Welcome to the Product Discovery Show, a show about product discovery done right. We talk to tech leaders about the real products they shipped where user insights made a difference. We'll dive into their case studies from end to end and share the insights that transform the trajectory of the product. I started this show to help product managers and entrepreneurs do better discovery. Too many times, products fail because we targeted the wrong user problem or the wrong solution. We need more products to be successful. Our guest today is Stacey Feero, Director of Product at AgencyAnalytics. Stacey was previously leading product strategy at consultancies like Verset and Deloitte, and has spent years at Loblaw Digital as Director of Product, overseeing the digital experiences for Canada's largest retailer. On the side, Stacey is on the board of directors for the Toronto Product Management Association and runs her own coaching business called No Fear Product Leadership to help leaders up-level their teams on strategy and execution. If I were to describe Stacey in 3 words, I would describe her as focused, strategic, and driven. I'm excited to talk to Stacey about her experiences doing product discovery with established businesses. Welcome to the show, Stacey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jing Jing.
So, Stacey, you and I have known each other for a while, and I definitely would describe you as focused and strategic and very driven in your approaches. But I'm curious to flip the question back to you. So if someone were to ask you about the type of product leader that you are, what would your answer be?
I feel like my career has shifted from driving myself to be strategic, driven, and focused into building product teams that are strategic, driven, and focused. So my whole MO in my career right now is how do I replicate and build great product people and build the next generation of great product builders that deliver consistent, sustainable value to customers that help businesses grow. And as you mentioned, I'm trying to do that and share that with other product leaders so they can coach more effectively to their teams.
I think a lot of times when people think about product management, they think about craft and processes and different artifacts, but I really like your focus on growing people because ultimately that's how you transform a product organization at a company.
It's teaching, right? It's like you've gone from getting really, really good at your craft to then understanding like, how do I teach this discipline in others? And it's not easy.
Tell me about it. We've been in the industry for over a decade and we're still learning. So that's great. I'm curious in terms of how you brand yourself and how you view yourself as a product leader. How did that come to be? Can you walk us through a little bit of your background of how you became a leader and a product leader and how your journey connected the dots?
Yeah. So I've been doing product management specifically for over 8 years, but been building digital products for over 15 years. And so I transitioned fairly early on in my career in tech into product management because I loved the what and the why more so than just executing blindly and understanding why what we're building in the software delivers value to customers and how it helps the business grow. Like that's what captured my brain and mind. And I would say, because I transitioned from project management into product management. So you'd say like, oh, I'm very execution driven and that's true. I'm very process driven. That's true. But what I found allowed me to transition into product early in my career was that I was an effective leader. I could rally. Product managers, we talk about our craft, but we're not really doers. We assemble a team of doers and skilled craftsmen to create something magical. Maybe this is a little bit of hyperbole, but that is what we do. And when I try to explain product management to people who don't understand what it is, I like to use the analogy of a film director, the auteur, someone who has the vision of where the final product is going. but frankly does not have the cinematography skills, is not the director of photography, does not know how to edit necessarily, not always, isn't the actors, isn't the makeup artist. It takes a village to build something truly great and magical that resonates with customers, that resonates with viewers. And it takes a really good leader to do that. So I found very early on in my career, I was naturally good at rallying people around me, selling the vision, and I really leaned into that. So when anyone asks me, how good am I as a product leader? I've been faking my hard skills in product for a long time because I lean on that ability to lead more effectively. So that's where my career has gone, which is why so much of my brand is around helping other product leaders lead effectively and coaching and teaching, so much more than doing the craft myself, because I don't find that the most fulfilling thing. And it's interesting that I find I'm actually pretty unique in that regard. When I see a lot of my peers around me, a lot of them just want to go back to doing the IC work. The leadership stuff is bullshit and it's frustrating, but I love it.
Yeah. I love the metaphor that you use. It's almost like film directors and also choreographers. You're behind the scenes, but you're really, really making sure the whole thing comes together and influencing each part, almost like directing and choreographing this product launch. That is the core essence of leadership. And I'm curious, in your background, you said you transitioned into product management quite early in your career. So what were some of the pivotal companies and experiences that shaped who you are?
So my first, I don't have a tech background. And the reason I use that movie analogy is because I studied film at school. I come from an arts background, but I got a job when I was an undergraduate student at a startup. And then it was like, what is this? I found it so magical. So that startup was probably 5 people originally, and I got to wear all these different hats. This was at the dawn of Web 2.0. Ton of optimism, a lot of money flowing into tech companies, even in Canada, on a little ridiculous ideas. And that experience of allowing me to wear multiple hats was the trigger for product. I didn't have the language to describe it then, but I knew that was influential for me. That startup went under, and then I went on and did project management for a long time because I didn't have the words to describe what a product manager was. I didn't know that was doing. I thought what I was really doing was project management, so I thought I'd go and do that. And then I was dissatisfied, and then I shoved my foot in the door at a company that I was at. I worked for one of Canada's largest newspaper organizations, media. So I worked in digital media. And I got my first product management role. From there, I went, okay, this is a traditional business. They don't really do product well. No shade, but it's true. When you work in traditional companies and you work in their digital arm, they bring a lot of baggage from traditional business practices. So I went, that's not what I want to be doing. And I want to work somewhere more innovative, and I want to get better at building new products, 0 to 1. That's where we ended up working together. At the company was originally called DWG, and then got acquired by Deloitte. So there was my experience learning more, not just about product, but about the bigger picture in the business. Because we built a lot of things 0 to 1, took a lot of new ideas 0 to 1. And I think I honed my business acumen there. From there, I worked at a tiny little SaaS company, and I hated it. It was out after, I think, 2 months. And then that's when I worked at Loblaw. So Loblaw is Canada's largest retailer. They own grocery stores, pharmacy chains, as well as a family clothing business. Very wide-reaching conglomerate in Canada. So I went back to the big traditional company and working in their digital arm. But what attracted me to working there was I was going to work on a 0 to 1 product, and their first digital product that was 100% digital. There was no brick and mortar retail component to this business. So it was 100% e-commerce play. And the goal was to build that up 0 to 1. That's what we're going to talk about today. So I found a lot of my passion in building those early stage products or taking new products to market, finding product market fit.
Awesome. Obviously, you've had quite a varied background, both in terms of large established companies and also small startups and agencies where you can really be creative with 0 to 1 products. And establishing a new team, new processes. But I know today we wanted to talk about Loblaw and some of the really exciting things that you actually shipped there with your team. So let's dive into that particular product that you were launching, the 0 to 1 product that is completely digital. So tell us a little bit about the context of that product. So what was it and how was it different than what Loblaw typically would ship in terms of products that they would roll out to the world?
Yeah, so think of Loblaw as like your Walmart correlative in the US. So they do like general goods, retail products, grocery, have their hands on a lot of things. So retail is their bread and butter business. And they still have their own digital arm where they just focused on the e-commerce side of the business. And e-commerce has always meant the online equivalent of the retail brick and mortar. And that's the way they always thought about it. I'm trying to translate what happened in the real world online. So when I joined the company, I joined a team building their first pure e-commerce play, which was an online marketplace, something Walmart had also done. Best Buy had done, Amazon had pioneered it. And so a lot of those traditional big box retailers went, well, I would love to not warehouse inventory and just put it on a third-party seller and then take my 20% cut. So that is what we built. Now, when I joined, I actually didn't get to build it 0 to 1. I joined under another product leader who did that, and I joined about 2 weeks before launch. And so our job, well, that was chaotic for other reasons. Yeah, busy time, trial by fire, great experience because then you get to actually QA and test it. So you get familiar with the product in quite rapid succession, which was my first 2 weeks. But once we launched, and this was launched in 2019, right before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, so very strategic, a retail play, my job was to come in and take it beyond the MVP. So as context, the idea for this online marketplace came out of like a big strategic brainstorming sessions that they have on a regular basis to like bring new ideas forward. And then those new ideas get kind of like pushed through, business cases get made in detail, and then they get greenlit for a certain amount of funding. So at a big corporation like this, think of them as your venture capital firm if you're working in a smaller startup context. They're the investors. They've made an initial upfront investment, then they want to see a return on their investment. So I was joining probably, I think it was like maybe 8 to 10 months from when it was greenlit. And it sat fallow for probably 5 months with like no internal support and traction way before I joined. And then my boss, my product leader, senior director of product, was hired, and she brought it really like in 3 months to a finish line. Now, this was built not as a standalone website, but it was integrated into our grocery websites. And Loblaw has 13 different grocery brands. Each of those have different websites. So a little bit different than Walmart, where you're dealing with like one property. We had it spread across 13 different brands that touch different parts of Canada. And so we were integrated into those websites. So that's challenging to execute, integrating into an existing product, but that was done strategically so that we had a built-in audience, built-in customer base from day one. If you built a new website from scratch, we'd have to bring customers in. I mention this because that meant the user experience really sucked. So if we went from like 3 months to like really getting momentum to launch, what we found was the experience sucked because, let me explain, there were technical limitations of how we could integrate into these existing websites. They're already kind of old. There was pushback internally because we didn't want to cannibalize the grocery business. It is the biggest revenue driver in the company. It's the biggest revenue driver for e-commerce sales at the company. So our digital part of the organization had its own P&L. So the grocery business was the beast. It was number one top dog. It always got top billing. The brand new little funded idea doesn't get prominence. So what happened was we launched it and the UX was not ideal. So there was no clear way from the homepage to find our online marketplace to say, hey, we have products from other sellers. The way you would stumble across our other sellers' products would be to search for something, see the search results, and then in the search results, we had tabs, like a sub navigation where you'd be like, here's your groceries, and hey, check out, oh, I can't even remember what we originally called it, but let's just say it said like marketplace. What the hell does that mean? It was something even worse before it was called marketplace. It was called something else, but it had no context. There was no reason to click. So when we talk about insights and launch, so we launched Black Friday, Cyber Monday, sales dribbled, and we're like, what the hell is going on? So we looked at our funnel and we had a top of funnel problem. So we were driving a ton of paid traffic and even some organic from like our internal marketing efforts. Like people were coming in, they were taking a look, but organically that hypothesis we had is that we have a built-in customer base because people are already coming to our grocery websites. They're naturally going to want to see more products from other sellers and buy them and purchase them. Well, no, because they couldn't find them, nor were they searching for them. So the other key thing we learned really quickly is I had to get into the mindset of what is the purpose of an online grocery shopper? Keep in mind, this is pre-COVID. So online grocery shopping was still a niche luxury for certain people who sought convenience. Convenience was the main MO of that user. So I know a lot of folks will understand this now because I'm sure many of your listeners probably have purchased their groceries. And got them delivered to their door. So you really understand that convenience and need. And you have to put yourself in the mindset of someone who's in need of that convenience. It's a chore. Grocery shopping is a chore in general. There are very few individuals and consumers who enjoy grocery shopping, I would say. I mean, it's a bit of a generalization, but I would say there's a skew there. And the majority of people see it as a chore. It's a task. It's a thing you've got to check off your list. And if you already do not have the time to physically go into a store to do it, and you're seeking the convenience of purchasing online, you've got your list, you've got your family to feed, you need to know there needs to be avocados and cereal in the house tomorrow. You're not browsing for what's available from other sellers. Now, I should make clear, I didn't mention this, our online marketplace was not grocery goods. It was supplementary goods like home and living, baby, toy and pet. So originally the business thought like, great, we're going to extend kind of like our offering outside of the grocery market into stuff that's your household goods. Cool. But all of those categories are things as a shopper, I'm in the mindset of browsing, exploring. I want to compare different throw blankets, throw pillows. I'm referencing my stuff in my background on my screen for anyone who's listening to this and not watching it. So you want to browse when you're looking for stuff for your home, for your children, for your pets. But when I'm grocery shopping, I have blinders on. I'm there to get my job done. So the user experience we created was fundamentally at odds with the MO of the user coming in to shop with us.
That's fascinating because I think what I'm hearing are kind of two blockers or two barriers. One is there is really no discovery of this marketplace. So it is search-only experience. Only
Search
if you're
or browse by category.
So it did show up in like a series of tabs if you want to explore, let's say, home goods or...
Correct.
Okay, got it. So there is a browse experience, but most people, what I'm hearing from you is most people come in for groceries looking to search for items and checkouts quickly. So they're not really browsing. There's no context for why there are throw blankets in addition to buying avocados. So that is a mental barrier that you discovered in why the launch wasn't as successful as the company had hoped.
Correct. So we looked at our data. We understood top of the funnel was actually really bad. Once people got to the end, the checkout, the conversion actually wasn't that bad. It was actually higher than industry standard, but volume was so low, it didn't matter. So we had two kind of problems. We weren't really addressing the customer's job to be done when they were coming to our site, or we were adding another offering that they didn't have the mindset or understanding to associate with us because they're there for groceries. And I'd say two, our marketing efforts were kind of wasted too, because we had nowhere to kind of like land them if we pushed them there. So there was no pull and there was no effective push. So we knew we needed to address this problem. So where did we start? Now that we had that data and that insight, we tried different experiments. So I mentioned originally when you searched for something, you'd get a tab to see what items were related to our other sellers. It defaulted to your grocery search results. We tried renaming that tab different things to try and entice people to come over. So like mini, low lift, let's see, like, is this part? The answer was no. Like, it could have been obvious. I maybe could have saved like a month or two of experiments there with the team because it was an obvious answer. We needed a bigger swing, but we needed to validate before we made a bigger swing. So what was the obvious change we made? We needed to integrate the search results. So we needed to meet customers where they were to start introducing the idea that we had more from other people. Now, what was also obvious at the time is Walmart and Best Buy had already done this experience and we had a playbook to be led by. Now, it wasn't a UX intentional reason to have those two tabs. It was a technical hurdle. So to integrate those search results, I think was like a 5-month technical lift estimate. And at the time before launch, that was just not a path that could be gone down because we had to take this thing to market by that timing window of that Black Friday, Cyber Monday, because it's a critical moment in the retail year. But when we gave ourselves a few months, tried different things, when we were into the new year, we went, okay, we have to do this. Now, I'd say we were very lucky because we launched in November 2019. 5 months later, something in the world happened that changed everyone's lives and took them outside of stores and online. So we had a natural wind in our sails to keep the business afloat. So the way I always talked about our online marketplace was it came to Loblaw, to grocery shop, whichever one of our brands Canadians shopped with across Canada. There's different brands across the different provinces of Canada. And our marketplace was where you would keep your household humming. That was kind of like the vision I set and I repeated with the team. And COVID helped kind of establish that for us and that vision and that kind of like vision statement we had, because we found that in those early days of COVID in early 2020, if everyone can pull their mind back, you were like, crap, I'm stuck in this house with kids. How do I keep them busy? Oh, crap, I'm stuck in my house all the time. I'm going to make it more beautiful so that my like background while I'm working virtually is prettier. So they were buying those like throw pillows, those throw blankets, those nice curtains, baskets. But like our real runaway seller that helped keep us afloat during that time was basketball nets for your driveway. So families were going, how do I keep these kids entertained? They're driving me crazy. The schools don't know what the hell they're doing. Get them outside, which no parent was used to flexing that muscle because getting your kids outside was like pulling teeth. Now it was like, I'm shoving you out there. Trampolines, basketball nets, stuff for the home was like a thing that like kept us going. Now, I mention this because any good product leader understands, any good product person understands, if you need to make a big investment in the product and the experience that's going to take a long time, you better believe the business needs to keep running while you're doing that and growing. So COVID provided this natural wind in our sails to see that the business kept growing while we made this investment because we knew we needed to. So we did this like big project to integrate our search results. It had a good impact on improving that top of funnel. Now, we did a few other things to help improve that top of funnel. We made dedicated landing pages. So like some of our marketing and SEO and our paid marketing efforts could have a place where you could land, where customers may have more of that intention. So now that we understood from that COVID customers, like they're trying to keep their kids busy, how can we target some of our marketing efforts to that job to be done and then land them in a spot where they can explore and look? What we learned from that once we had integrated our search is that let's say we drop them into a landing page with all of our basketball nets, blah, blah, and they go, okay, I'm not really seeing the basketball net I want. Or actually, you know what I want? A trampoline. Maybe they went basketball net. So once I go back into the search and I go trampoline, again, the search results are mixed with grocery items. It's confusing. So trampoline, like something maybe labeled brand trampoline or something, and it would show up in our search results. So we're like, okay, so that next step on the discovery journey is still frictionful because I've converted that user from like associating us with just that grocery mindset. And I've got them to think that you can come to us for some of these other goods that you may need and we can provide them. But it's like a one-to-one relationship. Like it'd have to be like, I'm triggered by wanting to see that basketball net. I go, I find the basketball net. I transact. If I go out and try to explore for more, I'm confused again. I'm seeing like, I don't know, like trampoline cookies with trampolines. What the hell? Like I'm confused. So what are some solutions down that path? We can improve our search. Cool. We have a platform team dedicated to that. They also have a very long technical investment roadmap to improve that search. That wasn't going to happen fast enough for us to grow the business, to get our internal investors to say, where are you growing? How are you growing? So we went, I can't depend on other teams. Where do we control our own destiny? So our initial solution to the discovery problem was to integrate our search. And then we said, actually, we need a dedicated spot that's just our products on this site. Now, we don't want to build another standalone site. We do want to take advantage of that built-in customer base. How do we look at all of Loblaw's digital properties and where do we offshoot and say, where's an entry point to shop our marketplace sellers with goods that help to keep your household humming that you may want? So what we did is we created kind of like a launching point off of the home pages of all of our different grocery brand websites. And we improved our positioning. So we always called it like, we never had a real brand. That's another story for another time. If anyone works in a very large organization, traditional organization, you're trying to launch a new digital product, it's very hard sometimes to get approval around branding changes. That's another story for another day. But we made our positioning a little clearer. We kept calling this thing like try our marketplace, but we explained to customers, you can buy these kind of items from other sellers other than us. So our homepage had this like launching pad over to a dedicated space where the catalog of products were only from our sellers. And then we solved a lot of the pain points around confusing the two experiences. So if you were in the grocery convenience mindset and you happened upon some of our sellers' goods, awesome, add it to your cart. You can get it shipped to you alongside either getting your groceries delivered or groceries delivered for pickup. So we did both of those from the grocery side. But if you were in pure browsing mindset, so this is where like our SEO tactics, our marketing tactics to really target customers who had already shown interest and purchased with us on the marketplace with one of our third-party sellers, bring them back to a space where they can come back and build that habit of coming back to us for finding what they need to keep their household humming. And so we really, doing those two things took probably a year and a half of investment, but that solved our first half of the funnel problem.
I think my main takeaway from this is divine timing really makes a difference because COVID bought your team a lot more time to be able to actually implement this change. Because when you first launched it, it shows up in search and shows up somewhat in browsing, but it was very separate of an experience, didn't have its dedicated space. And then you decided to create some landing pages, but then that also broke some of the subsequent searches and a lot of the relevance of what people are looking at are not there when they were searching for trampolines or basketball nets. And then, so now, how many months later did it take for the team to actually implement its own space, dedicated marketplace space?
That was probably another year and a half. So I'd say like 1 year was like, or half a year was integrating the search. And then like some more research, small iterative changes. and recognizing we needed to create that own space. Then probably another 4-ish months into the next year. So we were a year, maybe a year and a half from the initial launch to that full experience being there, like where we integrated our search results and we had a dedicated space to just land on to shop our third-party sellers. So yeah, probably a year and 3 months to a year and a half where you start to see the impact on the results on the business metrics. Because you got to keep in mind, that's going to take time to like your downstream impact. This is the problem with product in general, right? You make these bets and investments in the software to make these changes. And everyone's like, well, where's the direct impact to revenue? I want to see that in a week. That doesn't happen. That takes time. You have to look at, like, we looked at our whole funnel and we're saying, are those numbers moving at the top of the funnel? And is down the funnel staying consistent in terms of conversion rate? Then our revenue will tick up. And then that's going to take time. And then also in an e-commerce business, depending what you sell, there will be seasonality to the year in terms of when you make the most revenue. So I mentioned during COVID, we had this huge uptick from people just buying stuff for their backyard to keep the kids outside. As we went beyond our first year in business, going into the second year of business, we found that spring continued to be our moment. So everyone says historically it's like Christmas and stuff. Christmas was good for us, like Black Friday to Christmas, good boost. But where we made our most money was spring, and patio furniture ended up being the winner. So it continued to stay in that like outdoor realm because people were investing in their own backyard and space to get out of the house because they couldn't do it in other locations.
This is very relevant for the Canadian context because you're holed up in your house for months at a time. And so
it's been crazy in the winter. And especially when we went through like lockdown, continuous lockdown, open up, back, like it made sense in like the greater sociopolitical context of what was going on in the business. So I think that's another key piece of advice. And I think PMs like don't necessarily always think about. It's like, look up what is going on in the greater world. Because you're so focused on like, there's friction from one page to the next, right? Like I said, like there's the friction in the experience and you can get myopically focused on that. But a really effective product manager, really effective product lead, I feel like product leaders need to be thinking about this at table stakes. But I think if you get really good at your craft as a PM, you're looking wider. What is going on economically? I'm experiencing that even now. So I work for a company that provides reporting software for marketing agencies. Well, the economy, even worldwide right now, our customers are worldwide, is tough. And the services business, so we serve marketing agencies. So if you're constantly hustling for new clients, making sure your clients are happy, the services business is the hardest business to be in, frankly. They're struggling. So when we see some of our customers downgrading, reducing their spend with us, we're like, what is going on? There are greater economic factors where their business is contracting. So what do we do? And how do we react as a product team to make sure that business grows?
I think timing matters a lot to product success. And to your earlier point about convincing these internal investors, right? If you aren't lucky enough to ride a seismic change in the world that gives you a year and a half to be able to roll out a change like this, what advice would you give to product leaders that are really struggling to show, early signals of success to internal investors?
So I mentioned earlier that we did some small experiments when we realized we first shipped and we had this like 2-tabbed experience when you searched. We tried different things to try and convince people to get over. If you're working in a big organization and you need that approval before you make a big investment in terms of a big project to move the needle, you have to demonstrate that you've tried the small things. There's no respect if you say, even if you know in your gut, I'm even still learning this because I'm like, I know what's going to happen. I can see it. I am seeing down the line, if we do not make this investment now, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. However, not everyone can see what's in Stacey's head. Not everyone can see what I see. It's my job to put that context and picture together but also demonstrate that we've tried things that are lower lift. Because Stacey is also not infallible. Like I could be wrong. Even though my product sense and my gut is so good from the years of experience, I can see where we're headed and where the train will go off the rails. I could be wrong. It's not bulletproof. So we have to try small things before you make the big investment and show that it's not working.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that in this case, timing really worked out and the team was able to really ride the wave and make some really drastic improvements to the product. So I want to backtrack a little bit into the insights that you mentioned. How did those insights that really transformed the product direction, how did those insights come to be?
So we really paired, like what I was really proud of was our team's work on pairing the quantitative and the qualitative. So I'm going to go back to a couple of things I said. After we launched, we looked at our funnel, right? Like, where was the break off in the customer journey? Now I use funnel, but like literally what I'm saying is the user journey to the end result that we want to get them to. In e-commerce, that's very simple. Come in, buy with us. What are all the steps in between? Where are you falling off in those steps in between? It was very, very obvious where that drop off was. We were not getting enough volume at the top of the funnel. Now, where I say we paired that with qualitative insights is when we launched, one of the first things I did, remember I said my job was to take this beyond the 1.0. Well, I said we made a lot of assumptions building this 1.0, this MVP, and it was that we made a lot of assumptions about the customer mindset, our existing customer mindset, as well as what drives a person to buy a general merchandise kind of good from any online spot. This also happens when you're in a big company. You're under-resourced.
Yes, always.
Especially when you're a moonshot bet. And the way Loblaw Digital was organized, we had a research team that then was deployed to the different lines of business to help support them. Now, our grocery business was the biggest moneymaker. It got all of the research resources. In my humble opinion, no shade to my fellow old coworkers, but often wasted. They did a lot of big research projects that didn't turn into actionable insights for product. And I made best friends with our director of research. And I was like, I need time. Here's what I know I need. I don't know how this happens or what method we use for research, but I need to understand how we can find product market fit. And my goal to get there is to understand the customer mindset when they're shopping with us. And I had most of the data from existing grocery business related research. We understood that customer pretty well. But you need to understand the mindset of someone who's making a choice to buy from Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, Marketplace. Like, I need to understand why they're choosing one place over the other and what could become our unfair advantage. Pushing on getting that research done. And I think a lot of people were like, Stacey, I don't know if this is like a good use of time. It seems like it's pretty obvious. Guess what the answers were? Convenience, speed of delivery, and cost. Shocker. However, the reason we did that research helped refine in our team's mind that different mindset of the grocery customer versus someone buying something general good for their home and household. And that research was the foundation for like kind of the principles we had in place when we were making decisions over the next year. And so we constantly went back to that, not so much for the data, but for like the storytelling, the mindset the team needed to be in to empathize with our customers and understand their mindset. And I think we made better product decisions because of that.
Wow. So it's really about the core understanding of mental models and user mindsets coming in, because this product is transforming the regular user mindset and journey. Because before it was really targeted and search-based and grocery-oriented, whereas now it is a little bit more about let's expand the scope of what you're looking for. You could be browsing, you could be looking for other things beyond just grocery. And so that transformation needed really foundational insights and understanding of those users.
Yes. And how do we capture them when they're in those different mindsets?
Hmm.
So our core persona at Loblaw was like the mom, and we kind of hated that. So we rebranded to like whoever runs the household.
Okay.
You know, like whoever runs the household and makes the majority of the decision in the household.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a family-based household, can be a single person household, a childless household. So, but that was the mindset we said, like, this is our persona, is the person who like runs the household. And that person is going to be in a different state of mind at different moments in their week and their journey of keeping their household humming, right? So like in the moment where they're like, I need food in my fridge so that dinner gets made tomorrow, very transactional, one focused. How do we then understand and hit them in the moment when they're in like browsing mode, discovery mode? What do I want to do to beautify my backyard? What do I want to do to beautify my home? What are all the things that I may need to plan a child's birthday party? The birthday party concept was one of our like grounding ones, because you're like, you get the cake and the food from our grocery stores, but maybe the balloons, the decorations, some of that could be shipped from some of our third-party sellers, and we'd offer more variety than we can currently offer in some of our stores. So we needed to really understand how to capture that different mindset, and I think that was really effective in empowering our teams to make more effective decisions.
Earlier, you also mentioned a little bit about competitive advantage. So for the person who runs the household, what would be the competitive advantage that Loblaw Marketplace provides compared to like an Amazon or Walmart?
So we learned also very early on in this research, the most thing. So for folks who are listening who are American, I have to explain this. Loblaw also owns Canada's largest loyalty program, which is called PC Optimum. And that loyalty program drives like hundreds of millions of dollars of value to Canadians. So when we talk to people about what value add we had, most of them have this digital loyalty card. They use it on a regular basis. Because we are the largest retailer in Canada, they touch one of our brands and stores. If we offered points on the goods from our third-party sellers, or the ability to redeem, because we often sold high-ticket items, patio furniture, that would be our differentiating factor. Business got in the way of us realizing that vision. So we knew very early on that would be our unfair advantage. There was a lot of concerns about cannibalizing the business, in this cannibalization in the sense that we would eat more points and like lose more money on goods that we wouldn't reap as much revenue back from. So keep in mind, like our sellers kept 80% of gross merchandise value sale. Gross merchandise value sale for everyone is essentially revenue in the retail world. So like we took a 20% cut, and I have to say, we never got to the place to do the financial modeling properly. But there was a lot of, I think folks who have worked at big companies understand this. There's so much politics and concern around like, well, this is going to eat into my P&L. Here's my fiefdom. No touchy. And so even if we knew that would be really effective to customers, it may not have made financial sense, but we never really validated it. So there's like one regret I have, it's bringing that vision to life. And I think there were a few reasons, but I think that was one key reason that the product actually ultimately failed. So 4 years after we launched, it was sunset. I was no longer at the company, but I had old colleagues who were, and so I got late night messages when it was shut offline. And I think we never realized its full potential because we never leaned in far enough into our unfair advantage to see the growth that our internal investors really needed to see.
Well, it seemed like the product itself was no risk to maintain, to keep up, right? It's bring in extra 20% of revenue. And why was it ultimately sunset?
So these numbers are interesting. So we went to 20 million ARR in 3 years. And to any startup, they'd be like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But when you're a giant business, the return on investment wasn't there. So where a startup, investors may funnel in quite a lot of money for that potential growth long in the future. I say the tolerance for steady growth is lower, actually. So we had steady growth, but we weren't seeing the kind of growth that actually Walmart or Best Buy saw in their first 3 years. We had steady growth. They had hockey stick growth. There are a couple of factors into that. One, the internal investment that was made was too high. We acqui-hired a company to run the software that managed our sellers' platform, like for the sellers to then send their products to us, get paid. We bought an external company. And in hindsight, we could have purchased software for tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to test this idea versus millions invested in acquiring. That was a fail. Missing the opportunity around leveraging our loyalty program was a miss. We didn't brand fast enough. Like, we could have leveraged our branding, leaned into some of the trusted branding that the company had to raise the visibility, I think, of the product, because we didn't really have a brand. We just called it our marketplace, and it didn't really land. It was very hard from a positioning standpoint. And the last thing I'll say is two more things of why it failed. Building that first e-commerce play, it needed more people. So when I say we compared our revenue numbers in the first few years to Walmart and Best Buy when they built their marketplaces, I can tell you they had a bigger team than we did. We also talked to a company in Australia that was very similar. An Australian company that was a big retailer, mainly in the grocery business. They did the same thing. Because we were in different geographic zones, we were not competitors, so we could share notes. And so we would get on calls with their product team who ran their marketplace and talked about their challenges. They had triple the size of the team I had. So I had 2 product managers and 2 pods. He had 6 and still struggled. Mm-hmm. So we were just very under-resourced in terms of an early investment to see that kind of growth, because I think we could have done a lot more things in parallel, right? To my point, these really big swings took 5 months, took months of research. If we had more resources, we could have fixed a lot of maybe foundational problems and done the big swings at the same time. But we had to make trade-offs. And the last thing I'll say is I'll go back to my pain point of this was the company's first true e-commerce play, and it was a marketplace. When I talk to people who build software, they understand what that means, that a marketplace is not a traditional e-commerce brand or business. There's 2 sides to the marketplace. There's network effects that are into play. I know you're nodding because you work for Uber. And I could not convince our leadership to look at marketplace-specific metrics. So our North Star was conversion. Incorrect. No, conversion is not what matters when you are building a 2-sided marketplace. I need to understand the network effect dynamics. So we weren't looking at the percentage of sales that were coming from a more holistic number of our sellers. So the number one marketplace metric is the percentage of sales that come from one source, whatever is on your marketplace. And we ignored for 2 years that we were held up by the whales, the sellers who were selling the most. Really, all of our revenue is coming from top 3 sellers. Problem. That is a problem, because our sellers would not, the ones who were underperforming went, I'm not going to invest in this channel for my own multi-channel e-commerce play because you're not delivering revenue for me. And all we kept looking at was conversion, and the consumer-facing side, we ignored our sellers for far too long. And you can't do that when you're on a 2-sided marketplace. Early days, you often, invest in one or the other. And we probably started on the right side to begin with, but didn't counterbalance fast enough.
I think there are so many good lessons to learn from this experience that it's really about, first thing you mentioned was investment, right? The right type of investment. more people, in your case, more people would have helped and less of the acqui-hire would have made more financial sense.
Yes.
In that realm. And then also North Star metrics, right? It's really about measuring also the health of your suppliers and making sure that they, the long tail, are getting what they need. I think there's just so much wealth of knowledge and lessons and information to be gleaned from your story, Stacey. And in terms of thinking about insights and gathering insights to make sure that products tend to be more successful, what advice do you have for product folks who are struggling to launch successful products, maybe struggling to get investments on research? Maybe they don't have a research team. What advice would you have for them in that case?
We often say, look at your data. It will tell you what to do. My hot take and counter advice is listen to your gut. You read your data, but there's something in your gut that tells you something's missing. I'm not getting what I'm needing to do what needs to be done. So I go back to early days when we launched this thing. I had the quantitative data. I pushed to get the qualitative side because we could have looked at that quantitative data. Discovery is a problem. We could have come up with one solution. But if we didn't have the user mindset understood clearly to everyone on our team, that would have resulted in worse solutions to the problems we were solving. So my advice is trust your gut and push and fit in the cracks. This is often what we have to do as product people. You can complain until you're blue in the face that you don't have the resources you need, you're not getting what you want, blah, 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 blah. Complain. Don't ask for permission. Ask for forgiveness. Figure out a way to get it done. So I figured out a way to get my research done, even though I wasn't going to get like the stamp of approval permission that it was the best use of resources and time. And I could fight that battle, or I could try to get it done in the seams.
And if folks don't have a research team, so you were able to convince the director of product or research to get you a researcher's time. So if people didn't have a research team, what would you advise them to do?
Do it yourself. I know this only applies to people who work on B2C products, but the experience I just shared was B2C. So I would say this, I said this to myself as well, that anyone is your user. Have conversations with your family, your friends, someone you meet in a cafe, in a bar. Your customers are anywhere when you have a big B2C product. Not the same for B2B, but the opportunity to be curious and learn can happen at any moment. So prioritize it.
I think a lot of folks tend to be hesitant. There's, sometimes a little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of, will I even learn anything new? A little bit of fear of rejection, especially if you're talking to some stranger on the streets, right? Doing guerrilla research.
I'm not really saying like go up to a stranger on the street, but I worked on something where like you're buying stuff for your home. When was I at a dinner party and someone just said, oh, I just bought these lovely, tell me about that experience. How did you decide where to buy that? Tell me more. It's like you can fit in those moments to be curious. And if you think about it from the lens of curiosity versus the transactional, like I'm trying to get something out of this other individual, that's where the ickiness comes in, right? Because you feel like you're trying to extract some value from someone who hasn't really offered it to you. But if you flip the framing to, I'm trying to learn something, and I'm trying to learn something that they have valuable knowledge on, and I'm just genuinely curious about what's going on in their world, no one will ever reject you. People love to share.
I think what I really appreciate about what you shared today is the mix of quant and qual, right? Because numbers will tell you what's happening, but it will not tell you why it's happening. And in the case of launching a marketplace 0 to 1 product, even if you join after MVP, transforming it into a successful product, I think a lot of that qualitative context, a lot of the user mindsets, a lot of, are we fulfilling the right jobs we've done for people who are coming in? All of that wealth of knowledge can only come from qualitative. And so, Stacey, thank you so much. I really appreciate the fact that you were able to talk to us about that learning, those lessons, really valuable lessons. And for folks who want to learn more about your coaching business and also your journey, how can people find you?
Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Stacey Feero, Feero, Stacey with an E. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a real message that you're interested in. Otherwise, I will not accept you. But if you want to follow along on LinkedIn, you can. And I've got a website, nofearproductleadership.com, that highlights the coaching work I'm doing and has a link to my Substack newsletter where you can hear my thoughts monthly on what happens to mid-career product leaders, what helps them, and what helps them coach their product managers to make better decisions.
Stacey, thank you so much for all your lessons and wisdom, and it's been great learning from you. So thank you again, and for folks who are listening, we will see you again next time. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode of the Product Discovery Show, please subscribe and share with anyone who's had trouble getting product market fit. You'll save them from the sleepless nights and nerve-wracking product reviews. Background music is composed by our friend Philip Pecker. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.